Sometimes we may want to filter an IP address, an IPv4 address, when it is internal, non-routable, like the 10.network, and we can actually see that if we put that filter, the function is IPv4 is private. We see the 10 network, 172, 192. Okay. Let's say that we need to do a search inside the payload, and we're going to use an expensive or relatively expensive regex. But we want to limit the log sources that we want to make that search. We don't want to go into the payload of everything. We just want to go into the payload of a few data source type name, right? Not the actual parser itself, but the type of, right? So let's start by saying, well, I want to project only the data source type name and the payload, which is what we're going to be dealing with. And we want to limit this to some log sources, but I don't know, I don't remember exactly how those are spelled completely. That's why the start with operator is so useful. So notice that in here we're going to say when the data source type name starts with, and when we're going to put palo in between double quotes, or checkpoint, and we put just those two. Now that we have restricted the management of the payload only to those two data source types, we can go ahead and do the regex. And for the sake of testing, because you get the IP address extracted as a normal component in the source IP, we see it here, right? Or destination IP, can be both. Let's say that, and again, this is an example, that's a regex that will hit on IP addresses, on IPv4 addresses, and we are extending, getting another column. We're going to call it IP address from payload, and we're going to run the regex. But again, we have restricted, because this is a long search for many days, we have restricted to handling these two columns and look only into the payload of anything that is Palo Alto, Palo this or Palo that, or when it's a checkpoint this or checkpoint that, right? And we can actually see that this is an expensive search. You know, we're going 120 days looking into the payload of that, but that's not a problem. We see that if we even view the payload in here, we'll see that there are IP addresses in there, and we saw it extracted there. Here we see that 10.10.10.10, right? Like we have seen with many of these operators, there's also the variant of saying and does not start with, okay? And there's also, if you want to be case sensitive, which in this case it's not going to work, you will need to, do something like that, because I know that the Palo Alto begins with a capital P there, but you get the point. You have the negated and the case sensitive variation of it. And there's also one that is exactly the same but ends with, for the same purpose, when you are looking for something of the termination of whatever you're looking, which in this case is the name of the data source type. When you want to apply the where or any other operator on a set of things, but you know exactly, it's not like the one we did before with start with. We know exactly how they are actually called. So in this particular case, we're doing what we did before, but now we're going to only look inside the Palo Alto logs or the Linux logs, and we know exactly how they are named, so we can use the in operator, right? Let's run this one. There is also the variant of this operator of the tilde, using the tilde for making the same thing but case insensitive. The in is without the tilde is case sensitive, and there's also they negate it, right? When it's not in that list. Now, one thing that I just realized that I'm not doing right is that I'm putting this operator next to the parentheses. So that makes it look like if it were a function, and it's not a function, it's an operator. It goes on itself. So if I run it like this, it will also work. But again, I just realized I don't want to give the impression that this is a function instead of an operator. When dealing with regex, we don't have to just do it like we've been doing using the extract function, right? We can, let's say that we just want to do like another filter. We can use a where here, and instead of extracting anything, we are going to say, well, in the payload, we put the string that we want to look this. In this case is going to be the payload. And then we're going to do matches, regex, and we're going to delete all these. And we're going to delete these and the capture group. We don't need any of these. And basically what we're saying is let's filter from all the log sources that are Palo Alto and Linux OS. Tell me where the payload contains an IPv4 address by virtue of looking from a regex. And again, it's an expensive search because we are going couple of days ago, but here we see it. That this is in the case of Linux. There might be a couple down there on the Palo, and if we look into the payload, we'll see that there is an IPv4 address right there.